We live in a time of dangerous partisanship. The sides that we call our leading parties have descended into madness and sloth, turning on some of our most basic human rights and leading by ridicule and cruelty. Rhetoric from some of history's most inflammatory conflicts pours from the mouths of our nation's speakers like water spills from a Roman fountain. While the elites of our nation squander our resources, placate us with meaningless platitudes, and withhold from us our right to choose even what happens in our private lives, our most personal affairs, many of the governance systems that we trust to uphold our fair republic still maintain their bureaucracy in the standard of paper and ink, whilst the richest and most privileged classes maintain private political meetings behind the walls of family compounds and within hidden digital social networks free from the prying eyes of those who their plans would actually affect. All the while, those richest and most conniving utilize their special privileges and PR star power to convince the masses that we do not want what they so readily use to manipulate us and the stage upon which we all must play. They tell us that someone else is the problem, all the while privately attending to and publicly rubbing in our faces that they have the technology to fix these new, modern problems, and would rather keep these fantastic new tools to themselves. And, the entire time, private interests and personal agendas hold the average child of our nation back by withholding important educational resources to the greatest number, necessarily extending the gap between the average and the eccentric, sometimes on no more ground than religious fear-mongering and hyper-nationalist American exceptionalism. At every turn, these private interests have lobbied those most weak-minded members of our ruling class to stall progress and preserve their special privileges by way of resisting basic, common-sense regulations to all manner of goods and services that could be improved if we merely moved forward with technology and society. And if we maintained a system wherein those who actually know what they're doing are in charge of the field for which they earned their credentials. We are tired of having completely unqualified, well-paid off elites holding offices for the personal agendas of corporate higher-ups who want to ensure that the common people have no say in what happens in their daily lives, and we want the information that those elites so eagerly grasp at to gain advantage over everyone else. In the hands of everyone, technological advancement and real, unbiased competition is possible. In the hands of the private interests, technological advancement will always be withheld from those who need it the most, so that those individual interests may be quietly supported against the better judgment of the masses. With those most qualified in the roles befitting their positions, education, and credentials, and with proper technological oversight, society moves smoother. Builders build, bakers bake, programmers program, and we don't need a business management specialist with no experience in the field to tell them how to perform their duties. Nor do we need Fortune 500 CEOs and preachers running for office to make decisions for the public. And if anything, we need nothing in the way of pyramid scheme families being in charge of our nation's education, or oil barons being in charge of our environmental protection institutions. After all, you don't hire a software developer to do your plumbing. So why would you have someone who has no experience on the farm as your Secretary of Agriculture, or someone with no experience in politics to be your president? Our nation shows a clear and obvious lack of priority-setting skills, and lacks the ability, right now, to use the right tool for any job, despite the fact that we presently live in an era where technological advancement could easily make most such problems a thing of the past. We could make today an era of struggle out of which we grew, because we invented the tools to get over it and actually used them for what they were made to do. But because of how we have allowed the nation to regress, because of the people we have allowed to take and remain in power during that time, we will not see that new, enlightened, technologically advanced era where fields are managed by people who actually have credentials in them, and wherein we are free to make our own choices for our own lives with the benefit of proper, modern education, allowing us to make informed decisions about what would be best for all of us. Instead, we have a political ruling class that is either too self-interested and mock helpless to do the jobs they are in office to do, or is outright against the goodwill and health of the nation, passing strictly theocratic and regressive laws that will overwhelmingly endanger and hamper our country's development, despite having been told numerous times and shown the statistics proving such choices will be disgustingly harmful to the common citizen. The world is not some simple, slow-moving place anymore. Other nations have caught up to us, and we have no ground to stand on at this moment if we want to make the claim that we are great or ever were. We have become the laughingstock of the international stage, one only taken seriously at the table because of the strength of our arms and the potency of our medicine. Medicine that we don't even share with our average people. We may have once been great, perhaps in a sense, but we have rested on the laurels of that greatness for too long, and now, in our most vulnerable of times, we have decided to turn away from our ingenuity, our work ethic, our compassion and humanity, our ability to adapt. We have instead pointed our eyes backwards, on some mythical before time of delusion that we can look upon when we want to ignore the reality and problems of the modern day, and ignore the systemic issues endemic in our government. Well, we can never go back, no matter how real or fantastic that may have once been. That is not how time works, and as time marches on, so too must our tools and methods. We must, now more than ever, pull ourselves up and pull ourselves forward. We must dedicate ourselves to a grand reform of our educational system. We need to face human rights on a level playing field without bias or prejudice. Our nation's well-being requires us to make some sacrifices for our wealthiest's highest luxuries to ensure that our most vulnerable can receive their most basic necessities. Our bureaucracy is slow and mired with numerous roadblocks erected by the most lazy and corrupt of our elected officials, all the while neglecting much-needed updates to smooth out the paperwork for all parties involved. We have to face down our own ignorance and embrace an institution that makes its decision with the guidance of those who are experts in the field being decided upon, with the support of those who have the strength of will and scientific understanding to tackle difficult issues with an educated perspective that does not bend to the private capital interests or petty political intimidation tactics. We must progress, for if we do not progress, we shall stagnate and die. We must stand strong, and we must stand together. We must move forward. For the elephants have grown too fat and decadent on their own grandeur, and the donkeys have become too stubborn and lazy for the work they put themselves in charge to do. All in the elite choose to serve themselves over the greatest number, and the most vulnerable among us are those who pay the price for the selfish negligence of those who would call themselves our leaders. America, if she is to survive, must throw aside the fundamental flaws of these two ruling parties and prop herself atop a better symbol. America needs a strong figure to think not for themselves, but for the people. All of the people. America needs the power and dedication of a bull moose to drag us back to the fore. Because the only way to guarantee that America is better for you is to make sure that America is better for everyone. That is what we are here for. Vote along the lines of the greatest number. Vote for what actually helps society improve for everyone. Vote for the incorporation of modern technologies that streamline and improve the process of our bureaucracy. Vote progressive!